Hey, everybody, and welcome to Angel Meadows, a conversation with friends. My friend today, my guest today, is the none other than the one and the only Murray's dad. Tim Miley. Okay, just a quick. I'm really good with the notes, okay, but whether I stick to them, who knows? Um, Tim, you are a paranormal investigator and Murray's dad, and a whole bunch of other things that's going to go. But I'm going to let you do a quick intro of not too deep because we're going to get into the questions, but a quick intro to everybody who doesn't know you, which there are not too many, exactly who you are.
Like you said, first and foremost, I'm Murray's dad, and that's the best label I could ever have. Also a paranormal investigator and created Photographs for Pooches in 2013. I've been doing paranormal investigation since 2008, and this is my first interview with video. So I'm stuck staring at myself, and I hate it. But yeah, I've been doing paranormal investigation since 2008. And it's my passion. It gives me purpose, and it gives me the platform to be able to make Photographs for Pooches a success. And you said not to get too deep into things, so I'm not going to.
Okay. Well, first off, Deb, don't cry. He is Murray's dad. We have four-legged and we have two-legged children. Sometimes the four-legged are just as, if not more so, needed for our attention and the help that can be given. Okay, go to the phone. Can be given to them because they can't use their words like two-legged ones can. And one thing about you, Tim, is that you don't, you don't worry about the words that they need. You just kind of sort of know. Photograph for Pooches. I got introduced to you back on Paranormal Radio, and I fell in love with not fell in love, but fell in love with your heart, with what you do. You Okay, whoops, we're getting more people popping in. I'm getting confused here. I have to close that off. I'm like a cat. Something moves, and I'm like, okay. Okay. You do a radio show, okay, on Parameter Radio. Hold on. Let's do this first. Let's get, for those of you who were not, okay, see, I think this is my favorite picture. For those of you who are not in the chat room and are just listening to this on the MP3, in the archives, there's going to be some really interesting pictures, and I got one up here where Yuki's smooching. I call it smooches. You're smooching Murray.
I'm going to hold back from crying while I'm looking at that picture, and make a joke, because actually how we got him to pose for that was there was a squirrel on the other side of the fence. That's what he is staring so intently at. But it ended up being a great. Yeah, it ended up being a great picture, but yeah, that's my boy.
Yeah, he is adorable, and I've seen him a few times in a couple of your silly food eating videos, which we're going to get to as well. But you do this thing. We're going to start with the photograph, because I fell in love. Like I said, I fell in love with you when you started talking about Murray and what you do for the animal shelters, and you go 100%. What you do is at events, you sell a picture of you and Murray. I believe, hang on a second, let's see, I think smooches? No, I think it's this one. Is that the one?
There's actually about 9 or 10 that we have for sale at events, but yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you sell this, you sign it, Murray paws it, and all the proceeds, they're $10 a picture, if I remember correctly, and all the proceeds go to the animal shelter that you're focusing on at that point in time. I believe the next one that you're doing is August 4th. It's, let me see if I can get this right, Houghton Lake in Michigan, and the benefit is for, I think this one's most adorable, Silver Muzzle Cottage. It's a rescue and a hospice for senior dogs, and it's located in Rapid City, Michigan. Did I get that right?
You got all of that right. I think it's Houghton, but if you're not from the area, you wouldn't know that. Houghton
French
Lake, but
Canadian.
but yeah, we sell the pictures for $10 a piece at events, and that's how it all started. I never imagined we'd get to a point, where here we are over 5 years later, and we're holding events, specifically for autographs for pooches. And I got to give the credit to John Cassidy. He was the one that said, "Hey, why don't we do events and all the ticket sales go to autographs?" And unfortunately, that has caused me to not be invited to a lot of paranormal conferences. But in the in the place of that, we've done quite a few autographs for pooches events, and all started with an idea, $10 a picture, and here we are 5 years later, and we've I can't do math in my head right now, but we're over $18,400 raised in 5 years.
I took notes. So yeah, but that's look, no, I don't see why you're not invited to more events. I mean, it's not like you're not asking them to give their proceeds. You're doing your proceeds.
Well, not
unless you specifically plan an event, a photograph for Pooch's event, which entails all of your amazing friends in the paranormal investigation field and the other friends that you have that reach far and wide, by the way, including wrestlers. Interesting.
The events are more for the folks that are on TV recently, and this guy hasn't been, and that's okay with me. But yeah, Autographs for Pooches, like you mentioned, it started out with the idea of a $10 picture, and here we are, and the whole thing is it's a legacy for Murray. It's never been about me, and if it ever becomes about me, then it's time for me to stop. But
you're Murray's wingman in this case.
for folks that aren't familiar with why we started Autographs, back in 2007, I was in the middle of really bad depression, and I've never told this story on video. I've told it in person, but not on video, so now I'm real self-conscious. But in 2007, I was suffering from depression, and I had just gotten Murray in November of 2006. He was beaten as a puppy, was rescued from the home. I was lucky enough, I feel like I won the lottery. I was lucky enough to get him. And one night, my depression got the best of me. And if he had not walked in the room at the time that he did and put his little head on my arm, I don't think I'd be here. So, as far as I'm concerned, he saved my life. And I've done everything I've been able to here since that day to thank him. And when I started getting in invites to more paranormal conferences, as a part of that, you get a table, and I had nothing on my table, and I kind of felt like maybe there was a chance there to do some good, and you use that spot on the table to bring awareness. So, Autographs for Pooches was founded in 2013 as a way to give Murray a legacy, and here we are 5 years later, and that legacy is set in stone, and that's about the most. That's the thing that I'm most proud of in my life, honestly, is being able to do that and getting a chance to raise money for Silver Muzzle Cottage in Rapid City, Michigan. I saw one of their videos come across on Facebook, one of the 60-second videos, and it was a spotlight on them. And like you said, earlier when you learned about me, I absolutely fell in love with these people. I really did, and I reached out, not expecting to get an answer, but I reached out, told them who I was, that I wanted to do an event for them, and Kim Scarrett got back to me within about a minute, and that started all of this. I got a hold of Deb DeRuse, and Deb has been fantastic in helping me put this together. She lives in the area, and within 2 weeks, we had an event put together with speakers and vendors, and we're going to raise a lot of money for Silver Muzzle Cottage. So extremely proud and really anxious.
Well, what I like about the Silver Muzzle is yes, raising Raising money for any shelter is awesome. But in a lot of shelters, the little puppies get adopted first. They're cute and they're cuddly and they're adorable. But it's the older ones that have, people, it's like, well, I don't want him and not going to have him for a long time. And so anybody who focuses on older pets is really cool. And I think I saw the same video that you did about, so you may have shared it, so that's maybe why
Yeah,
I saw it.
I think I shared it about 20 times, but it hit a heartstring for me because just a few years ago, my ex-wife and I adopted a black lab that was left at the shelter. She was 13 years old, and we had her for 11 months. Her name was Sasha, and it's the best dog I've ever had in my life. And all she wanted was a home. And when she got here, she became a mother figure to everybody in the house. And it was so special seeing her, and she was so grateful to have a home. And here we are now, and Murray's 12 years old. So he's a senior dog too. And I can't imagine ever coming to a point where I look at him and go, you know what, I'm done. I'm going to go trade you in for a puppy. And quite honestly, the folks that do that, I don't have the time of day for them. It breaks my heart that somebody would do that. Murray, yeah, he gets medication and it costs some money, but there's no price you can put on love.
Nope.
And I love him. I love him to death. I love him dearly, and I've not a better friend in this world. So it's money well spent. And as a matter of fact, I told Kim, if she wants to put a senior female dog in my car on the way home, I'll gladly give that dog a home too.
Aha. So you're gonna have another dog adopt you, because that's the way I look at it, is that you didn't adopt Murray. Murray adopted you. He chose you. And I believe, like a lot of things, I believe that animals choose us. It's like children. My thought is when a parent wants a child, there's a child that chooses you. I believe that animals do the same thing. And they can either sit back, they know what you want. Murray knows when you want to be left alone, and he just doesn't do it. That's because that's his choice. That's what he wants. And so animals know what we need even before we realize it. So I think Murray realized that you needed him as much as he needed you. Even though he makes you feel good, because it's like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna let you think that you're in charge here, but Murray is like I say, Murray is your boss.
I am never in charge. He is the king of the castle, and he knows it. And that's okay with me. I've had people come up to me at events that have told me that are mediums, that have told me that it wasn't an accident that I found Murray, and a lot of them have attributed it to my dad, and my dad taking care of me from the other side. And I'd like to think that there's some truth to that. But yeah, Murray is an angel, and his face has made it possible for so many other animals to find homes, and how beautiful is that? And here I am on video, and you can't see it, but you're making me cry. And
but they're good tears. They're good tears. Look at that face.
And that's
this
one
one I call the one.
Yeah, that was a morning we were just sitting on the floor, and I was giving him belly rubs, and he sat up, and he doesn't like his picture taken, so I had to do it quickly, and that's why it's a in your face selfie. But yeah, that's my dude, and no matter how bad my day is going, Deb mentioned in the chat, the smile on my face when you referred to me as Murray's dad. There's nothing more genuine than that. And if at the end of my lifetime that's all I'm known as, then I've done okay.
Well, I have a feeling you'll be known for being a whole lot more than just Murray's dad. Because as you said, there might be one jumping into your car in August. A nice pretty little female who'd be like, okay, now I'm gonna grandma everybody in his house, and you boys won't have a word to say. Because if I'm correct, your Ginger's a male too, right?
Yeah, I think my cat would have a problem with that. He's he loves to think that he's in charge, but he's third on the totem pole. There's a hierarchy in the house, and but yeah, he and Murray they coexist. There's not a buddy friendship. I had a ginger cat that passed last July, and his name was Bip, and him and Murray were were beautiful together. They grew up together, and as a matter of fact, the day that we had to put Bip down, that night I was laying in bed, and the most magical thing ever happened. I saw Bip walk into the room and sit in front of Murray for about 10 seconds. It was like he was saying goodbye. And yeah, so I'm a big softie, and we've established that. And now we can talk about things that make people laugh.
Talk about things that make people laugh, and then we will come back to Maria because, see, as much as there's this one picture that I really think I call this most Murray, because he is like, it's okay, I'm still here. Don't worry about me.
The story behind that picture, I want to tell that real quick, and then I'm done being a sap for a while.
2 hours of being sappy, darling.
A lot of people will badmouth their ex, and I'm not going to do that. I mean, it didn't work out, but for a long time, Amy, my ex-wife, was in charge of the photos. She took the photos of Murray and I, and she did a wonderful job. And I'll never be able to repay her for that. This photo in particular is a logo for Autographs for Pooches. And basically, I told Amy, I said, I want it to look like Murray is looking back at us from heaven. There's going to come a time when he's not here. Mm-hmm. But he's always going to be a part of Autographs. And this will always be the logo. And I will cherish that picture forever.
Yeah. I think it's cute. I think the little footprint in the pot, as the letter A, is like sort of just perfect. That's
actually his footprint, but it was just been taken down. Yeah. But yeah, she just shrunk his paw print, so his paw print is the actual A in the logo. So yeah, it's a beautiful photo, and like I said, it'll always be the logo of Autographs.
Yep. Yeah, but it's very, very true, and I'm gonna try not to make you cry anymore, just for the moment. Anyway, okay, paranormal investigator. Tell me about when you started becoming when you started wanting to do the investigation, and what was it that first thing that sort of like, because you don't do. I mean, I listen to different paranormal investigation teams. I watch. It's not my thing because I'd be screaming like a banshee, going, I could do the after, as I always say. I could do the, listen to the tapes and watch the video and do that, but be actually in the minute. So that's another bunch of people that you help is there. Well, what was it that got you interested in the investigation side?
The home I live in. I moved here in October 2006. And like I said earlier, I was going through a lot of depression at the time. It was over a previous relationship, and I wasn't dealing with it real well. I thought that life was over and things could never get any better, and obviously I was wrong. But I moved into this house, and within, I think a week, 2 weeks at the most, I had footsteps running from bedroom to bedroom upstairs above where I'm sitting right now. Bangs on the wall, voices coming from my closet. And I thought I was going crazy. I really did. I really thought I was going crazy. I came across the show Ghost Hunters, which a lot of you in the chat room are familiar with. I had never seen it before. I was 31 years old. I had no anything to do with the paranormal field, never seen any of the shows. In fact, I hadn't seen Ghostbusters, and I get grief from that to this day. But in my family, in my dad's side of the family, they were very, very religious, and they still are. And I'm not going to bash anybody for their beliefs because I don't believe anybody has the right to bash me for mine. So they're very religious, and their belief is that when you pass, you go to heaven, you go to hell. That's it. That's the end of the story. There's no need to talk about it any further. So as a family, we never spoke about it. And here I was, 31 years old, dealing with it for the first time. And, quite honestly, Murray comes into this story because I brought him home and he started following everything that I was hearing. He started chasing after the things that I was hearing, and I didn't feel insane anymore. I came across Ghost Hunters. I found that there were teams in my area. I reached out to them. to try to get some help, and none of them got back to me. So it kind of forced me to educate myself on what this was. And once I better understood it, I wasn't nearly as afraid of it anymore. Mm-hmm. And I want to try to pinpoint exactly when I decided, hey, this is something I should do. But it was sometime in late 2007. And January 2008, we founded Fox Cities Paranormal Team. And really the goal of Fox Cities Paranormal Team is helping families. I'm not your normal paranormal investigator. You don't see a lot from me on Facebook about my team and fun and exciting things that we're doing on the weekend. And that's fine if people are doing that. It's just not me. We concentrate on the residential cases because when I needed help, I couldn't find it, and I don't want anybody to ever feel that way. So, here we are in the last 10 years, and we've done over 200 residential cases. And like I said, it gives me purpose. It really does. It makes me feel good that I can help those families, because every family should be able to feel comfortable in their home. And that's always the goal. The goal isn't always this amazing piece of evidence. If that happens, that's great. But if at the end of the investigation, if at the end of the time that we're with them, they feel more comfortable than they were before we got there, then that's a win for me. I'm sorry, I'm fidgeting all over the place. I typically talk with my hands, so at least I'm not doing that.
Go ahead. Have you seen me talk lately? Hello. I have to hold on to a pen so to keep my hands still, so don't worry about it. But yeah, what I said was that I have seen not just videos, but you talking about the investigations that you do. And no, you don't make a big ta-da about it, but what I've noticed is that you do make sure that the families are I think satisfied is the word. When you leave there, you don't leave them scratching their head, because I've heard of horror stories that people go in and say, oh, I've done this, and you've got this, and you've got that, and they leave the place worse off than when they get there. And you guys, from the way I understand it, you guys go in there to do your very best to help the family. You're not out for the big, the big thing, the big ta-da. Yes, there are people out there who do that, and they still get the outcome that's necessary, but it's more, look at me at what I'm doing. You guys do it very low key, very quiet, but the families and the people that you touch in that respect are, I've never heard one negative thing. Trust me, I listen. One negative thing about what you do and how you help people.
I'm sure there's people out there that aren't a big fan, but I go about it from the aspect of, if I had people coming into my home, how would I want them to treat me? Mm-hmm. And that's really the way we attack it. From the beginning, it hasn't been about what you know about the paranormal, because I'm confident enough in myself that for new members, I can teach them that stuff. Todd Arnold runs the team with me. Fantastic guy, great friend, and just somebody that I really admire. But he and I have always said that we need somebody that cares about people. If you don't have compassion, I can't teach you that. I can't teach you to be a good person, but I can teach you the paranormal. So the folks that are on the team, wonderful, wonderful people. They give their time just as much as I do to these families that we don't know. And what it really comes down to is the people on the Fox Cities Paranormal Team. They make me look good, and they allow me the ability to do all of this extra stuff, and wouldn't be able to do it all without them. So I can't take all the credit. There's some pretty wonderful people.
They let you be the front man so that you guys can do what you got to do.
Yeah, nobody else likes to talk. I think that's what it is.
Because they me.
And Todd and I have been together since 2008, and throughout the years, people have come and gone, but Todd and I have been together since the beginning, and the others have between, I think, 2 and 8 years of experience. So good people, they know what they're doing, and it's a good feeling as a leader to know that you have those kind of people.
So how did you choose your first team? How did you enlist your first set of victims at some point?
I'm actually laughing because the story of how I added Todd to the team is so stupid. But originally it was myself, Matt and Chris, and Matt and Chris are not with the team. They lasted 4 months, and it was very obvious that they weren't in it for the long haul. They're not bad people. They just didn't want to put the time and effort into it that needed to be. But the first investigation that we did, it was myself, Matt, and Chris. We were in for a 2-hour drive to a residential case. I don't recommend going in cold and having a residential case as your first case ever, but that's the way things went for us. And I worked with Todd at the time, and from watching the shows, believe me, I've gotten better in the last 10 years. But from watching the shows, I thought, we need to have 2 teams of 2. We can't investigate alone, and I would rather have 2 teams of 2. So basically, I walked up to Todd at work, and I said, "You ever watch the paranormal shows?" And he said, Yeah, I do. I said, "Do you want to do that?" And he looked at me with this stunned look on his face. And it was the dumbest reason ever for adding somebody to a paranormal team, but it was the best result that I could have asked for. I've met a lot of the folks from TV, and some of them are great people, wonderful people. But if you give me the opportunity, I'd rather investigate with Todd. I know him, I trust him, I know where he's going to be. I know if stuff starts to go wrong, that Todd's going to be there. So, best accidental addition ever.
Yeah, but again, it's like when Murray chose you. Tom was there for a reason. You were friends beforehand, so you knew you could trust him. And saying something like that to a friend, it's like you knew he wasn't going to go, "Are you out of your ever-loving mind?" He's the kind of guy who's probably going to go, why not? Because that's what you.
Until then, our only bond was wrestling, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that and the stupid videos that we make once a year. But that was our bond, and then it turned into this paranormal thing. And Todd is, a lot of people call people brother in this field, and sometimes the term is overused. But there's nothing closer in this world to me as a brother than Todd is, and I wouldn't trade him for the world. So nobody else can have him. And this segment is brought to you by Coca-Cola.
That's okay. My segment's brought to you by Sleeman. There you go. My Sleeman's water. Okay, so wrestling. Now, wait a second. Is Todd or is it Tim the one you do those buffet videos with?
Well, I'm Tim.
No, you're not Tim. I know you're Tim.
Oh, Tim.
Okay, look, I'm ready.
Yeah. Tim Woolworth is in Michigan. We don't get to see each other near as much as I would love to. Todd and I are very close, and the wrestling videos are done with Todd.
If anybody does not know Tim outside, in Facebook, well, friend request Tim, okay, because this guy does some interesting meal choices on when they do. I don't know how you guys get to those, but there's 2 grown men sitting there eating things from squid to all kinds of gross and nasty things that even just thinking about it makes me want to toss my cookies. And you guys are sitting there with a bucket between you going, "Okay, let's eat this shit." Like, oh my God. But it's hysterical.
We started that tradition, God, I think it was like 5 or 6 years ago already, for WrestleMania. Neither Todd or I are big on betting money. But but we wanted to come up with something where we had a competition and there was a definite winner and a definite loser. And our good friends Jimmy and Michelle Nason have always been in charge of the buffet, and they'll get some of the nastiest stuff. It's I can't remember all the stuff from the buffet that they did this year, but it was disgusting. And yeah, so we have a garbage can between the two of us, and basically it's a live video, and people are just hoping that we throw up. And the two of us, we're funny together. We could just sit there. We could sit there silently and just eat, but what fun would that be? So we try to make the video as entertaining as we can, and yeah, it got some good reviews this past April, and the food was disgusting. It was really bad.
It was. I'm serious. You have to bump up the next video. I'm going to find it and I'm going to share it on my wall. For those of you who haven't seen it, you're going to see it on my wall. It's grossly, hysterically funny. And it's truly gross. And I'm like praying that the dogs don't go, let's try this one, because no.
We had a bet the first year. The loser had to shave their head, and Todd lost, and that's why he's bald to this day, because he said, hey, I like this look. Todd lost, and we're shaving Todd's head, and Murray, we didn't realize it, but Murray was eating his hair. And then when we realized it, we took Murray out of the room. But yeah, so Murray likes to get involved. We don't let him have the food because it's not good for us, so it's not going to be good for him either.
Well, it's not harmful to you guys. Like, you're not eating anything that's going to kill you. It's just going to make you toss your cookies.
We did have lutefisk one year, and if you don't prepare that correctly, it's poisonous and can kill you. So I lost that year, and I was terrified. But I ate it, and I'm still here.
You're still here? Okay.
Yay me.
Cool. Actually, yay for the person who prepared it properly. Thank you. Okay. So go ahead.
That wasn't me.
Okay. Was it?
I didn't say a word. I promise.
It's fish and lye. Ugh. Oh, okay. Thanks, Jackie. Yucky.
It is. It's about the most disgusting thing I've ever eaten in my life.
Joan says EVP. Do we have some EVP stories that should be interesting?
I think she means that voice.
Ah, okay.
That I didn't take credit for. In which case, that would be a disembodied voice and not an EVP. There we go.
It wasn't Onyx, because Onyx is out cold.
That's me with my finger up because I'm teaching.
Professor Tim. There you go. Okay. You wrote a book.
I did.
A picture of it. And you're going to find out one thing with me is I never stick to one topic for too long. I kind of sort of bounce around, I'm like Murray in a room full of toys. I will find what toy I want to play with for the moment, and then I'll toss it and go find another one. So, your book, The Endless Road. Oops, sorry. Your book, The Endless Road. That is your story.
It is. It was, well, my first book was All Roads Lead to the Paranormal. That was back in 2013. And then I wrote The Endless Road, and I think it came out in 2016. It's basically just an addition to the first one. So if you didn't read the first one, you can still read the second one. You'll get all the information you need. The Endless Road is me opening up, sharing some very private and personal things. I talk about my dad. When I was 8 years old, my dad was putting out cones at my elementary school and was hit by a construction truck in the school zone and would end up in a coma for 6.5 years and end up passing away when I was 15. I talk about my suicide attempt in the book and how Murray saved me. I talk about how this whole paranormal thing I attribute to my father, because the first spirit I ever dealt with was my dad. So yeah, I mean, it's to write about those things, you have to relive them, and that was the most difficult part of doing all of this, was just putting myself back in that space. And when I was talking about the things that happened to my dad, I put myself back in the place of a 8-year-old boy, because that's how I remember him. It makes you grow up quickly, but it also never leaves you. You know, it affects me, and it affects me in ways that are really difficult for me to even put into words, honestly. I have a picture of my dad in the living room. I talk to him all the time. I often find myself, wondering, what if, what if that hadn't happened that day? And, I look back and I think of my dad as an 8-year-old boy. And as that 8-year-old boy, my dad will always be my hero. Because that's how I remember him. Without that happening, everything happens for a reason, they say. Without that happening, where am I at in my life? Am I doing all of this? I have a wonderful relationship with my dad in the afterlife. So although sometimes I look back and I feel like I got cheated, not a whole lot of people can still have a relationship with their dad, even though he's been gone for 28 years. I have friends like Scotty Rorick, John Cassidy, April Roan, Cassidy Ray, all great mediums that give me messages from my dad from time to time. And they're all special. And every kid wonders, is what I'm doing now making him proud? And I've had so many people say that there's no doubt that he would be proud. And I'm not real big on patting my own back. And, I've done some things in this world that I'm proud of. I've done plenty that I'm not, and I don't make those public. So,
unless you're eating them on the video, but yeah.
Yeah. But I try to live every day, to make him proud. And I'd like to think he is. But yeah, the book starts out, talking about my dad, talking about the suicide attempt, gets into why I started the team, and then we get into a bunch of my cases. And of course, I end the book, talking with Murray. Because without Murray, none of this happens. And it's weird because, to think that everything could have ended in 2007, and it didn't. And the things that we've been able to accomplish with Fox Cities Paranormal Team in the last 11 years, the things that I've been able to accomplish with Polygraphs for Pooches, it's all amazing, and I'm very grateful. I have a great group of friends, a great support system that will not allow me to get full of myself and will remind me that you are still Tim. Because I'm still Tim to everybody. And it makes me laugh, quite honestly, when people try to put me on a pedestal, because I'm just when I get off the show tonight, I'm probably going to go sit on the couch with Murray, and we're both going to fart and watch TV, and that's my life. So I'm no, but
then you have your own show right after.
Yeah, but that's my life,
But I think one thing I have to say about this book is that the steps that you went through in your life, that you put this in the book, and you're not afraid to talk about it. There's a lot of people who don't talk about depression, and this is like really prevalent right now, depression and suicide. You share that with people, so there's, if not more, that you've got to know that at least one person has read your book or will read your book that will make a difference in their life.
Well, when I started Polygraphs for Pooches, I knew that I was going to have to open up about that stuff, because people needed to know why. When I wrote the first book, I opened up about it, and it was about 2013, maybe a little bit before that I started referencing it in some of my lectures at paranormal conferences. But when I started doing Potographs for Pooches and really got into depression and suicide prevention and animal shelters and how you're not just saving that animal's saving you, it amazed me. I'm sorry, I got like tears and snot, and this is all very, very hot. It amazed me the people that I was able to reach. I think going into it, I was really naive. And I think the reason for that is, I think the reason for that is that when you're going through it yourself, you feel like you're the only one. You feel like nobody else feels this way. And then when you open up about it and you realize, wait a minute, half the people in this audience have had suicidal thoughts. Half the people in this audience have had somebody that they've lost to depression or suicide. It really opens your eyes to what a problem it is. Mental health in this country, around the world. I'm never going to be able to save everyone. And I think if I tried, I'd drive myself nuts. But I've had people come up to me at events afterwards, and they'll come up to me in tears because they want to tell me their story. By sharing my story, it opens them up to tell me their story, and then you just hug and you cry, and before you know it, you have a line of people that want to hug and cry.
A bunch of tears. It's like, how does the show? How did the event end? Everybody's in tears. Okay, it was a hit. Because you allow people to feel. You allow people to see your pain, which allows them to accept their pain and share it with you. And it's like, unfortunately, when we have pain, when it's shared, it lessens. When
we do these events, share a real quick story from an event we did in Dundee. I was invited out there by Tim Rian, Old Mill Parafest. I think it was November of 2016. I'd never been there before. The people in Michigan, I love them. They seem to love me, and I love them for that. They've always been there as far as Potographs for Pooches. They've been very, very supportive. But I got invited out to the event, and there was about 200 people in there listening to me do my presentation. And I did quite a few question and answers afterwards. So I didn't get out of the room for a while. And when I got back to the room, I realized that there was a line from my table out the door. And I wasn't prepared for that. I sat down, and the first lady in line came to me, and she was crying. And I guessed she was between 65 and 70 years old. She was crying, and she brought her 3 children, her grown children, with her. And I walked around the table, and I gave her a big hug. And she managed to tell me that the cat that she just put down was her last connection to her daughter who had passed away. When her daughter passed away, she gave her the cat. And that the cat had passed away, and now that connection was gone. And it was hard for her, but it was like I shared my story with her about my love of animals, so she wanted to come to me, even though it was such a personal story. And I tell you that every time something like that happens, I realize that what I'm doing is worth it, and we can't stop.
No, we can't, because you do give. Like I said, you make people see that they're not alone, and then you can make it. Sometimes people just need to be heard and just need to have that hug. And I have a feeling that you spend more of your time around the front of the table hugging people than you do actually sitting in a chair behind, which is what you see a lot of people do at certain events, not all events, but people are sitting behind their table and they're doing what they do. And nothing against it, but I have a feeling that when you are doing the events, even though you're signing the papers, the pictures, and you're doing your selling of the pictures and the fundraising of for the shelters, a lot of people come to you knowing that, you know what, we're gonna get a hug, because it's like you should also have a little sign that says free hugs,
It's a good thing I don't have like a cleanliness phobia where I can't like shake hands, because I go nuts at these events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Howard Mandel is like that. He can't. He does that fist pump thing, but yeah. Um, there's a lot of people getting stuck with a big bad storm going on. So everybody stay safe who has to leave because the storm's coming. Know that you can listen to the rest of this in the archives. And I promise, maybe just one more time, I might make Tim cry. You never know. You know, I'm trying not to do it. But he
Yeah.
said, you know, it's honesty. I can do it. Yay! Okay, have, let's get this picture up. Where did I find it? Where did I find it? Where did I find it? I think this is it. I'm kind of slow in this regard. Oh, that's not the one. Even though you both are so cute, Joe will cover Fox Cities. Something tells me I didn't. Oh, no, there it is. Mid-South.
There we go. Mid-South Paranormal Conference.
A lot of people on that picture.
There is.
I was like, oh
There's
my
a
God,
lot of people.
So,
Yeah.
this is on July 27th, 28th, and 29th. It's at the Holiday Inn in Hurstbourne.
Yeah. Just
Oh,
outside
look,
Louisville, Kentucky.
we were speaking of John earlier. He just popped into the chat room. John Cassidy's just come into the chat room. No, he will.
Hi, John Cassidy.
So, he can't hear you yet. You have to wait till little headphones pop up. Otherwise, he's like, he can see you, but he'll get the headphones on. So, now he can hear you. Go for it.
I just
hey,
got
John,
done saying.
To the chat room.
Yeah, I just got done saying a bunch of great things about John, but I'm not going to repeat them because then everybody else has to listen to it again.
He didn't say anything nice about you. He didn't say anything nice about you, John.
No, I love John. He knows that. At least I hope he
no,
does.
It's not true. He doesn't.
But yeah, Mid-South Mid-South Paranormal Convention. Louisville Ghost Hunters put it on. It's just outside of Louisville, Kentucky. I'm looking at the poster right now. Some of my good friends are on there. Scott Grunwald, Keith Age, of course, puts it together.
All these people in one team?
No, this is 3 days of speakers. That's what it is. Friday night, Saturday, all day, and then Sunday morning. And they got 3 rooms running at once, so 3 speakers at a time. So Scott Grunwald is going to be there from what's the show he used to do? Paranormal Paparazzi. And then Rob Damaris from Ghost Hunters International. Keith Age has done a bunch of stuff. Also is running this event. Deep South Paranormal. Benny and John. Scotty Rourke, great friend of mine. Now you're zooming in and I can see them better. Christopher and Rachel Booth. Scott Tepperman, one of my greatest friends in the entire world from Ghost Hunters International. And then myself and a bunch of other great people. If I took the time to read off everybody, I'd be here all night. But Mary Marshall will be there, Cheryl Carter, just a bunch of great people. And I'm honored to be a part of it. It should be a great weekend. And some of those big events, I kind of get lost in the shuffle. So it probably won't be a great event for Potographs for Pooches because there's so many tables for people to go to. So I'm hopeful, but if we don't raise a lot that weekend, I completely understand.
I have a friend in the chat room. He's from Fall River, Mass, the home of Lizzie Borden.
Hey, Larry.
I knew that. But so how? Now I sit back and I watch because that's what I do. Aside from talking, I do watch and listen. How do you find the connection with the in the paranormal field? There most of the teams that are good are willing to help each other out, or is it like some of the psychic world and the spiritual world where people, I don't know how you see. I'm all about sharing because sharing helps us to learn and to grow, and you never know who you can touch when you share. And I know that in this, like I said, in the spiritual community that I've seen, there have been some the people who are afraid to share, so they get to learn. Somebody younger or older in this case, gets to learn different things. How is it in your view of the paranormal field?
From my view in the paranormal field, I'm a little bit different than most. Most of the stuff that we do is residential. I'm all for sharing as much as we can when we're doing these big investigations at these public buildings, and trying to further the field. But quite honestly, I don't share much when it comes to residential investigations because that family has put trust in me that I won't. There's a confidentiality that comes with it. I am lucky enough to have a great group of friends in the paranormal, a great network of friends, people that I trust and trust their opinion, that I can reach out to. If I don't know the answer, I can find it. But as far as putting things out there to say, hey, look at what we did. What do you guys think of this? Can I get some ideas? I don't share that stuff with the general public, just because there's a trust between me and the client, and I don't think it's right to do that. So I'll reach out to people specifically. Tim Woolworth is great for that. I bounce ideas off of him. John Cassidy, Scotty Rourke. Scotty Rourke works for their team. John Cassidy has too in the past. Scott Tepperman, I'll reach out to him. I've called John Zaffis and just bounced ideas off of him and asked for his advice, and he's very good about giving me advice. And I still have to pinch myself every time I call John Zaffis' house and he answers the phone. That shouldn't be me, but somehow it is. And to be able to have
for those people who don't know who John Zaffis is, you want to tell us?
John Zaffis is pretty much he's pretty much the godfather of the paranormal, in my opinion. 40 years of experience. Used to be on the Haunted Collector, but did so much for this field before. He's the nephew of the name is escaping me right now, and that is embarrassing. Geez, I egg on my face. I can't remember who his uncle and aunt are. They're really well known, and for some reason I can't get the name to come out of my mouth.
Somebody in the chat room,
but basically he's paranormal royalty in my eyes, and somebody that I've looked up to since I got into this field. And it's an honor every time I call him and he picks up the phone. You don't abuse the privilege. You don't call John every other day to ask him how things are going, how the weather is. But he knows if I'm calling, it's for a reason. Lorraine Warren, thank you, Joan. Lorraine Warren, and Ed Warren. I don't know why I didn't remember Ed and Lorraine, but just a wonderful, wonderful human being, and so much paranormal knowledge. He has probably forgotten more about the paranormal than I know. And I'd like to think I know a little bit about the paranormal. So, he's just a great guy to have on your side. And if you need help, you can call him.
Very cool. Thank you, Joan. Okay. Is there anybody out there in the paranormal field that you haven't worked with that you really would like to work with?
Well, if I'm thinking, are we limiting it to? We're probably limiting it to people that are on TV, I'm guessing, so people know who they are.
It doesn't have to be people who are on TV that everybody knows who. It might be somebody that you know who it is, and it's just like this is the person. It doesn't have to be a celebrity.
I do not know Jason and Grant. I'm answering that question from Larry in the chat. I know Jason's daughter. I've done events with Samantha. But as far as people within the field that I'd really love to work with, friends of mine, April Rohn, I would love to work with her more. She's a fantastic medium. If you don't know April, then you need to look her up. She's great at what she does. I'd love the chance to work with Tim Woolworth on a real case, instead of these public investigations at events. Tim is one of the most intelligent people that I've ever met in my life. And then I guess the last one I'm going to name is probably going to surprise some people. I would love the chance to work with Adam Berry. I think Adam Berry and I are a lot alike when it comes to our feelings about the paranormal and our compassion for the client and the compassion for the spirit. And I would love to get a chance to bounce ideas off of him and learn from him.
It's always fun to know that, like who you look up to, who it is that sort of, makes you stop and go, I'd like to work with them. So I'm not sure who Adam is and April and
Now you have
Tim.
homework. You have to go look these people up.
You have to give me homework. I hate this when I guess give me homework to do. Like Professor Tim. Okay. All right. Let's see. More questions. See, you've done it. You've pretty much answered all of my questions. Have you ever, and I already know this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Have you ever had wanted to do a photograph fundraiser for a shelter that has chosen to say no?
Yes. You probably want an answer longer than that.
I knew somehow I knew I was just going to get that. Go
ahead. It frustrates me to no end. The paranormal field has given me this platform. Without the paranormal field, I don't have the reach that I do to be able to raise this money for the animals. So I have to work with what I have. And unfortunately, about half of the population doesn't really like what we do. They don't believe in it. They think we're nutcases. But they don't take the time to take the time to get to know us. They don't get to take the time to learn why we do this. They just automatically think, hey, they're talking to Satan. Unfortunately, unfortunately, that also goes with animal shelters. Some of the places we've contacted have flat out refused the donation because of where it's coming from, where we raise it. Some animal shelters will tell us, we'll take your money, but we don't want anything to do with you. So drop off the money after you're done. Thank you.
Drop off.
The event, the events that are the most successful are the events that the animal shelter gets behind it and they promote it and they get their followers and their fans to come to the event. The more people that show up at these events, the more money we make for the shelter. Yep. So it's frustrating. The last few months here have been very rewarding because we've actually had shelters reach out to us and ask if we would do an event for them. That's pretty amazing. That makes you feel good. But you still run into the occasional shelter that really doesn't understand what we do, and they have no reason to or no want to learn. So it's frustrating, but we try to remember that there's also going to be times that it's incredibly rewarding, and we concentrate on that.
Mm-hmm. And it's true because maybe the one shelter that says no, thank you for whatever reason, the next shelter that you do contact with needs more help than, and I'm not saying one is more deserving than the other. It's just that, like we say, things happen for a reason. We don't always have to understand it, but they do.
They do indeed.
And I think it's a shame, but that goes along the lines for a lot of people. And like you said, some people think, oh my God, paranormal investigation, they're dealing with demons. No, only when he's on my show does he deal with a demon. but no, it is. Do you find that since you first started Photograph for Pooches, that not just the idea of the how you're raising the funds, but how people. Ooh, I heard my echo there. I'm scared to hear my own voice. That people are more accepting. That they've sort of grown with the fact that there's more out there than just bodies in the ground. That there are spirits and there are ghosts.
Within the paranormal field, yes, they're more accepting. When it comes to the animal shelters, I don't think Potographs is that mainstream yet.
Yet.
A lot of people still think that I go around taking pictures of dogs because they associate Potographs with photograph, but it's Potograph and autograph that are the connection there. But yeah, the paranormal field itself, it's more accepted what we do than it was 10 years ago when I started doing this. And a lot of that you can contribute or attribute, sorry, attribute to the TV shows and just the public becoming more comfortable and enjoying the shows for entertainment. And it has opened up more doors for us. But like I said, when it comes to the animal shelters, from time to time, you still run into one that's just a pain in the butt. And that's a shout out to you, Tampa Bay Humane Society. There you go. They were the most difficult animal shelter I've ever dealt with in the 5 years. So much so that I finally said, I don't feel comfortable raising money for you, so I'm going to find another shelter. They would not do anything in the way of promotion. They wouldn't answer emails, questions that I had. Basically just ignored me. And finally, I got a hold of them and I said, I cannot, in good conscience, give the donation from the people that are giving money to your shelter. And we went and we found the Tampa Bay SPCA, and they were very happy to be a part of the event, very happy to get the money. And yeah, that's the only shelter that I've ever pulled the donation from. And it was because they were so horrible to deal with. And if this gets back to the Tampa Bay Humane Society, you know I'm telling the truth. So change what you're doing.
Yeah, you have to. You have to be willing to stop and understand and have an open mind, people. You know, not everything is black and white. And there's so many different colors. There's so many different colors in my rainbow, so y'all deal with that one. Paranormally speaking, have you ever had the opportunity of discovering the spirit of a deceased animal? That's from Larry in the chat room.
Very early in my investigation career, I guess you would call it. I think it was year 1 or year 2. We were at a home in Green Bay, which is about an hour from me, and actually saw the spirit of a white dog walk across the floor in the basement. But that's really the only time on an investigation. Now, I spoke about Sasha earlier in the show, our 11-year-old, or 13-year-old lab, sorry. After she passed, she made herself known a few times. And then, of course, I told the story about Bip coming to say goodbye to Murray for the last time. A lot of times the animals just don't, I don't know what it is. I hardly understand human spirits. So for me to get into animal spirits, I think I'm really getting myself out there. If anybody tells you that they have everything figured out, they're lying to you. We learn something new on every investigation, and a new technique, a new way of doing things. And you have to be open to growing and evolving as an investigator. So the short answer is one time on an investigation, and having done about 200 of them, that's not a very not a very big number, but I would love to. Mostly what I end up finding are, well, not finding, but dealing with are the spirits of deceased children, which is heartbreaking, but they seem to be drawn to me or drawn to the team in some way. And yeah, some amazing stories about those. But yeah, some of those cases made me a better person than I ever was beforehand. So sorry for the really long answer, Larry.
No, I don't think he minds. I think the reason that the children are drawn to you is the same reason that Murray was drawn to you. Your heart. You know, some people when you talk to them, and when this like I said, I've known you for a little bit, and this is I think the second time I've actually had a conversation with you on the show. Your heart is just it shines. You glow. You are so open to listening to people And you show it by the lady that you said who came around and told you about her cat. A lot of people would just sit there and listen to the story, nod their head, but you chose to go around the table and hug her. And children, whether they're alive or deceased, they still can sense that. But that's my personal view.
And I was listening to every word you said. I was just getting a message in and trying to answer it. Sorry about that. But yeah, I think with child spirits too, that they are they may or not be drawn to me, but the way I deal with them, I think makes them more comfortable. The first rule of dealing with a child spirit is I'm 6'4". I need to get my big ass on the floor. And I need to get I need to get down to their level and talk with them and make them feel comfortable. You have to think about it as in real life. If somebody my size, even though I smile most of the time, if somebody my size walks up to a 3 or 4-year-old, it's going to be intimidating, and they may not want to talk to me. So you need to do what you would do with any child, and it's worked for me. It's worked for the team. I have to give a lot of the credit to Scotty Rorick and John Cassidy. They've helped me on those cases. They've helped me with those spirits and have made it much easier for me. But yeah, I mean, it's heartbreaking dealing with a spirit of a child. It really is. Because I spoke about earlier losing my dad at an early age and feeling cheated out of that time. That child that loses their life at 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, there's like 70 or 80 years of life that they should have gotten. And it's hard not to feel that they were cheated. So you do whatever you can to make them feel comfortable and help them however you can.
Well, okay. Anybody who has a question for Tim, just type it into the chat room, just like Larry's doing. Also, Larry asked, in your experience, do deceased children seem lost? So they indicate that.
In my experience, yes. Unfortunately, I can only go by my experience. The last case that we did with a child, we were dealing with a little boy who Scotty estimated to be about 8 years old. And there was another spirit in the home of an older lady, but they didn't know each other. It was like they were passing in different dimensions. They had no idea that the other spirit was there. Just being able to gain this boy's trust. And it's actually a beautiful story, but I'll save you most of the details because otherwise I'd take up the rest of the show. It was an old funeral home that we got called into. A family was living there, and they had all these spirits, and it makes sense that they would have spirits, and a lot of them. This little boy, though, we got an EVP of him saying "Panda." He was calling out for the toy that I was talking about. He seemed lost. He seemed like he was looking for his parents. And I remember the last night that we were there, I was working with Scotty Rorick and Jolene Shadell from Fox City's Paranormal Team. The three of us were in the home. And I was talking with Scotty about this boy. And Scotty looked right at me and he said, "We need to call in help." And I said, "Well, who do we need to call in?" And he said, "We need to call in your dad." My dad has helped on many cases. He really has. John and Scotty will call on him. And in this case, Scotty wanted to call my dad in so he could help this boy understand that he could trust us. And, it's one of those things where if you're not there, you kind of roll your eyes and go, yeah, whatever, But, yeah, my dad was able to help that boy understand that we were trying to help him. And we successfully moved him on. And I can't do that without Scotty. He's amazing. And we've done that a couple times now together. Every time that happens, it's special. And, you have to have compassion for the spirit, too. A lot of people go into these places. yelling and screaming and not giving the spirit any kind of respect. Not only is it rude, but why would you go in yelling at an 8-year-old boy?
I've seen a few shows where people go in and and I, and I didn't know in the beginning, right? I mean, this is just my personal way of thinking, is that they go in and they not yell but fuss at the ghosts and sort of like prove it to me, you know? And that's not the way you talk to people. For me, that's not the way you talk to people in real life. So why would you talk to spirit? So you don't know what the spirit is. In this case, it's a little more difficult because you don't know if you're talking to a grown-up or to a child or who, to somebody who's a cranky old curmudgeon or, just a soft-spoken, scared person. So what my way of thinking is the way you treat people is the same way you should treat spirit. You don't know who anybody is and you don't know their story, so go in with respect and then just, one step at a time. So yeah.
Exactly. I put myself in a position of how would I want people to talk to me. I know if somebody comes up yelling and screaming in my face, I'm not going to react positively. So, I try to give that spirit as much respect as I can. There are rules to it, though. There have been times that some of the people on my team have been touched in ways that they did not want to be touched, treated in ways that they did not want to be treated, and I'm very protective of the team. So the respect goes both ways. As soon as the spirit stops showing us respect, then it turns into a whole different animal. Not provocation, but definitely a more serious tone to the conversation. Not as lighthearted, not as loving, you might say. Need to get your point across that the way you're treating our people is not good, and it's not going to be allowed.
To me, that's the same way you treat people in real life. So that's and not everybody is as understanding and gets it, and the same thing goes for spirit. Not everybody in spirit will understand that, like you said, you're not to treat your team like that, your people. This is your family, and you will be protective of them. That's not it's not an option. So it's like, that, Ginger's not allowed to kick Marie's butt, so it's, he does when you're not there.
Yeah,
Trust me, it's Gingers are really nasty
yeah,
sometimes.
he couldn't if he wanted to. That poor cat. But I'm glad you said family, because I talked about having compassion, and as you can tell, it got a little warm in my office. I'm glowing now. I talked about compassion earlier, and having a family dynamic on Fox City's Paranormal team is very important to me. I love all those people like my brothers and sisters. I really do. Because there's going to be situations where you're going to be that you need to understand and know that the people that are with you care enough about you to not leave you behind. That they're going to help you, that they have your back. I don't know what the language rules are on the show, but Todd has always told me that, in his words, Todd says, if shit gets real, I want you to know that I have your back.
Oh, I like that.
And I need
You're okay.
and I need to know that. Okay. Yeah, you need to know that those people love you. You need to know that they care about you, because there's going to be situations where that's going to become vital.
Yeah. Have you, off the top of your head, can you name one investigation, residential or otherwise, that is like the worst one that you've done? Not for the outcome, but everything that happened during it.
It was actually a public investigation. And usually those are pretty cut and dry. People come to those, they want to talk to the celebrities. I put those in quotes because it's not me.
Yeah.
It's the people from TV.
Okay.
And then if I'm speaking at the event, I get put in with the speakers, and we try to give them as real of an experience as we can for a paranormal investigation. We did an investigation up at Little Traverse Bay Parafest. The name of the building escapes me, but if John is in the chat room, he can probably tell you what it is. John and I were running a group, and we were on the top floor. And my Coca-Cola is going to come back to me, and I'm going to have to burp. And I apologize, but it's coming.
Baby.
There it is. Okay. So we were upstairs, and I sat down on the stairs, and John came over to me, and he asked me what was wrong. He could tell something was wrong. And I'd become incredibly angry for no reason whatsoever. And John came over to me, and he asked me, he said, what's wrong with you? And I said, I don't know why, John, but I hate every one of these people that are here. I cannot stand them right now. I was so mad. And John told me to walk off, get some air. And I did that. And when I came back, there was a medium in the room that was part of the group. And she had mentioned that there was a man in the room, and he was sitting at a desk, and he was upset that we were all here. And at that time, I asked her, I said, well, where did he come from? And she said, well, he came up the stairs. Well, in order to go up the stairs, he would have had to walk right through me. Yeah. And all of his negativity and all of his anger was the reason that I had become so frustrated and so upset. So it all made sense. Then the investigation took a little twist, and it's actually kind of humorous. And forgive me for this story, but it was the first time I'd ever met Tim Woolworth. We'll just have that out right in the beginning. But I was standing in the doorway next to John Cassidy. And as I stood there, I felt something rubbing my stomach. And I looked at John, and I didn't want to make a scene because this is I see you laughing already. I didn't want to make a scene because this was a public investigation. So I looked at John, and I said, John, there's something touching my stomach. And I said it as quietly as I could. And John kind of gave me this look. And then it reached down, and it picked up my phone in my pocket and dropped my phone inside my pocket. I could feel it messing with my phone. And I said, it's playing with my pocket now. And John kind of gave me a weird look. And then it grabbed me somewhere where you don't want to be grabbed. Typically.
Okay.
And I looked at John, and my exact words were, this thing is grabbing my
crotch.
Yeah, we'll go with crotch. Yeah. And John gave me this strange look, and he said, go down and talk to Andrea and Tim. Now, this, I think, was my first time meeting Andrea Perrin and Tim Woolworth. So here I am walking down to the second level and calling Tim over to me. They were doing a ghost box session in the hallway on the second floor. And I called Tim over to me, and he's a great ITC specialist, a fantastic human being, intelligent man. And the first real conversation I have with him, I tell him that a spirit had grabbed me by the crotch. And Tim gives me this unbelievably awkward look. Now, keep in mind, the spirit boxes are still running. So we're hearing everything from down the hallway. And the spirit box starts yelling for Tim. Well, Tim and Tim are having this conversation. So we both go back to the spirit box. And it's the creepiest thing I've ever heard come out of radio. A woman's voice said, Brenda was the grabber. And then there was like 20 little evil laughs. And everybody in the group is staring at me like, what in the hell is going on? Now, by now, John Cassidy has brought his team down from the third floor, and we're all standing in this hallway on the second level. Dan Smith sees a black shadow behind John Cassidy. And John pays no mind to it because John is like 6'4", 300 pounds, giant man. This black shadow knocks John's legs out from under him, and John goes horizontal, hits the ground. And now we're like, okay, we have to stop this investigation. This is a public investigation. They're starting to attack the speakers. We need to keep the public safe. Let's get them out of the building. So there we are in the middle of all this chaos. And I just met Tim Woolworth, and Tim Woolworth and I look at each other. And almost unspoken, we both look at each other and go, we know where we need to go. And Tim Woolworth and I went upstairs to that room on the third level and did another session for about a half hour alone. And it was the most important 30 minutes that I think I may have ever done on a public investigation. And getting to work with Tim for just that little time, and knowing that we had just met and that there was an unspoken bond, and he would do anything for me and I would do anything for him. It was just amazing. And yeah, just a really strange story from a public investigation. But Tim tells the story when he does interviews with me, and he talks about it swinging it around like a helicopter and all this other stuff. And so Tim embellishes, but we get a good laugh out of it. But at the end of the day, it was a serious situation. And, John could have been really hurt. And thankfully, John wasn't hurt, and nobody else was either.
Well, like you said, in the moment, it was. I can just imagine your face going, somebody you have no ideas. you know, but you don't know, and you have to tell them this, and it's like, okay, I'm blushing at the thought.
I am also blushing because that's what I do.
Yeah, but that just goes to show that you're still human. But like you said, you can laugh at it now. At that moment in time, it was like, holy shit. So I know it's not a great thing for a guy to have done to him, but it's not a great thing to have anybody have that done to them. But I'm sorry, I'm gonna have that giggle fit every time now. Every time.
To end that story, the next year at that same event, they brought in Elizabeth Saint from Ghosts of Shepherdstown. Elizabeth is a wonderful investigator, very intelligent, great investigator, great person. She's basically the female Tim Woolworth. But she had a group upstairs, and they were telling her about what had happened the year before. And in that moment, she asked Brenda if she would come and touch me. And I was in the basement. So I'm in the basement, something starts touching me. We regroup after the event, or after the rotation. And Elizabeth comes up to me. She goes, I need to talk to you. We went into a different room. And she said, did you get touched at all in the basement? And I said, yeah, I did, on my arm and my shoulder. And she said, well, I asked Brenda to go downstairs and grab you again. And my first reaction was, why are they telling you that story? And secondly, why are you asking the spirit to grab me without any knowledge? But at least this time it was on the arm and the shoulder, so it was a little more G-rated.
This time was the arm and shoulder. So she maybe learned not to grab boys in the areas that they don't want to be grabbed from the spirit or from the human. But in the chat room, Joan said creepy in the beginning, yeah, but at the end, like you said, everybody was okay. And it's very interesting. That's sort of a showstopper right there.
Yeah, we got 35 minutes left. I ended the show.
No, I meant your investigation. It's like, hello. Other than that, what is without naming names and dotting the I's and crossing the T's, the investigations that you're the most proudest of?
The one I'm most proud of is the Chris investigation. Chris was a 2-year-old boy that a spirit that we dealt with for over 2 years. Worked on the case from 2010 to 2012. Actually, eventually ended up on Paranormal Witness, being featured on there on Sci-Fi. Now it's on Destination America, I guess. But we got called into the home, and little to none in the way of research. They described it as their children were being pulled out of bed. They were seeing a man and a little child in the home. So we pretty much dropped everything without doing any research, went into the home for the first time, and did get some audio, one that said murder and the other one that told us to get out. Went back in 2 weeks later. We tried to do as much research as we could, but actually it was the client that did the most for us. She went to the local library and found an old newspaper article that detailed a murder that had happened in the home back in 1967, I believe. And there was a little boy named Chris, 2 years old, that was in foster care for a matter of weeks, and was rushed to the hospital, declared deceased by strenuous child's play. What it really was is the foster father had molested and murdered this little boy. We investigated that building 5 times over the course of 2 years, and I really developed a strong relationship with this spirit, this little boy. To this day, I think about him every day. There'll be some time during the day that I think about that case. That case made me a better investigator, made me a better person. We investigated 4 times. By the end of the 4th investigation, we really thought we had come to the end of a dead end, no pun intended. We had a voice from the 2nd investigation, a little boy saying, "My name is Chris." We felt very confident. We knew who we were dealing with, but we just couldn't get any closer to solving the case and helping this little boy. And that's when my relationship with Scotty Rourke started. Back in my infancy in 2010 or 2012, I started doing radio on Z-Talk Radio. And Scotty is the owner of Z-Talk Radio, and he only lives about an hour and a half from me. And we had never spoken before. I was put in contact with Scotty. I called him on a whim. Back in my early days of investigating, I was not very open to mediums. The ones that I had dealt with, basically, I just felt like they wanted money, and they were people that I couldn't work with. So I got put in touch with Scotty, and Scotty is genuine. Scotty wants to help. And I asked Scotty if he would help me on a residential case. Instantly, he cut me off, told me he didn't want to know anything about it, and that, yes, he would help me. We got together before the investigation for dinner, just to kind of get to know each other. Scotty didn't know the team. We didn't know Scotty, just to make sure we were going to be able to work together, because it's personalities that you're putting together that need to be able to work together. And what I found is that Scotty's a lot like me. And we got done with dinner. We had some time, so we sat in the living room. And this is April of 2012. And we're sitting in my living room, and Scotty looks at me and he says, "Your dad wants me to tell you something, but I'm not sure I should tell you in front of everyone." And I said, "Well, this team is my family. You can tell me anything that you need to." And he gave me some very personal information from my dad, something that made me cry instantly. And Scotty didn't have to prove himself to me, but in that moment he did. Yeah. We got in the car. And he sat in the back with Todd. And I didn't know this until we got there, but he was drawing out the layout of the home on his knee and telling Todd where exactly things were happening and what had happened. And Todd told me, he said he was right on everything. He said, I was amazed. And Todd's more skeptical than I am. So we got to the home, we did a walkthrough, and every place that we had activity, Scotty basically said, this is where we have to be. He was so perfect on everything. We got into the first, we got to the point where we were going to set up our equipment, and Scotty asked me to go outside with him. And we went out onto the porch, and Scotty looked at me and he goes, "I wasn't ready for this." And I said, "What do you mean by that?" And he said, he goes, "Why did you bring me here?" And I said, "Because this is the most important case I've ever done, and I need your help in getting this family some closure." And he just said, he said, "This is going to be a very emotional night." And it was. It was very emotional. The first round that we did, it was myself, Amy, and Scotty in the basement. Scotty basically was doing transcommunication with this little boy. He was letting the little boy talk through him. He didn't know anything about him, but he was introducing himself as Chris. I knew this was the little boy that we had been dealing with. In the most emotional moment of the night, I asked the little boy if he knew who I was. And he answered, and he said, "Yes, your name is Tim, and I trust you." And for 2 years, I've been trying to get that little boy to trust me. And to get that message, I knew that those 2 years were not wasted. And those 2 years have gotten us closer to a conclusion. And I'm happy to say that the little boy isn't there anymore. I've been at events where other mediums have come up to me, and they'll ask me who the little boy is that's following me. I've had John Cassidy, as a matter of fact, has told me that my dad takes care of Chris. He watches over him. And from time to time, Chris will pop in. And, that relationship is pretty special. It really is. And, you've made a difference when a spirit chooses to follow around this boring guy.
That's your opinion, because from my view of thinking, Chris has chosen a great big brother. And
yeah,
part of your family. He's just not the in here, the on the ground family. He's the spiritual family. Like you said, he's with your dad. So your dad, pops in and does what dad do. And he wants to be a mischievous.
The amazing ending. The amazing ending to that is that that following October, the client called me. I was getting ready to do an event. I was doing a lecture at the museum here locally. The client was calling me, and I couldn't answer the phone because I was in a hurry to get to the museum. And she sent me a text, and she said, "You need to answer your phone." So I called her back, and she said, "Chris's sister is here." And I said, "What do you mean Chris's sister is there?" And she said, "Well, Chris's sister was in the foster home with him, and she came back because this is the 45th anniversary of his death today. She was outside the house crying. And I told her about you, and I told her about the things that you found in the house, and she would like to talk to you." I have never been more scared in my life to talk to somebody. Because like I said earlier, either you love the paranormal or you don't. There really is usually never any in between. And I didn't know where she was on the subject. So they gave me her number, and I called her. And she answered the phone, and I said the only thing that could come to my mind at the time. I said, "Hi, my name is Tim, and I love your brother like he's my own." And we had a conversation. She actually came to the lecture, which was difficult because a lot of my lecture involves him. But we talked afterwards. She came over to the house for about an hour. And eventually the people from Paranormal Witness contacted Scotty Rorick and said, "Do you have any residential cases that you think would be great for the show?" And it took some convincing, but we finally convinced me that it was the right thing to do. I didn't want to do TV just to do TV, but I felt like his story deserved to be told because the old man got away with everything. In 2005, they reopened the case, but they declared it a homicide. But by that time, the man was dead, so he never did pay for his actions. And this little boy had been tormented by him for what we could guess is 45 years since he passed. So it was important that his story got told, and that's the only reason I did the show. They took some liberties and things were out of order. The timeline wasn't right on the show, but at the end of the day, they told the story about why he passed, and his story was told, and I think he would have been happy with that.
I think so too. One thing I noticed is oh, he did, yes. The Jilly, I'm not even going to try your last name, darling. Says
that's actually, I didn't realize that, but that's my mom. The last name is Schwanke. Yeah, that's my mom. I love you, Mom.
You have to give me some good stuff, some good dirt on Tim one day. I'll have him back. But yeah, I believe too that in the afterlife he will, if he hasn't already, he's paying for his crimes. Chris, that the man.
I
Um,
real quick here before we move on. I have a real quick story. When I first let my mom know that I was going to do paranormal investigation, I think we went out for her birthday. We went out to dinner, and I broke the news to her that I was going to start a paranormal investigation team. And she gave me this glossed over, like, you've got to effing be kidding me look on her face. Because I think at the time she thought it was just going to be a fad and it was just going to be a phase. But here we are almost 10 and a half years later, still going strong, and not a bad decision I made there. But yeah, when I first let her know, she had this look on her face like, oh God, what else? But I think she realizes now that we do good.
I think she knows her son very well. So so 2 years with this one investigation, this one house, this one child. Has that been the longest investigation that you've had as a continual?
Yeah, we've had other investigations that have, gone the course of about 7 or 8 months. You end up being almost like family with some of these people. Some new investigators may not expect that, but the investigation does not end once you pack up your equipment and leave. In many ways, it just begins. Some people consider you family, a very good friend. Some people look at you as a counselor, and I'm not a trained and schooled counselor, but sometimes I'm the only person that'll listen to them.
Exactly.
And
that's what people need.
just having somebody to listen to you is big. Yeah, she brags all the time. It's actually almost embarrassing, but
moms are always proud of what our kids do,
Yeah.
whether they're not.
No, I'm kidding. I love her. Honestly, I talked so much about my dad because I didn't really get a chance to know him. He's been gone since I was 8. That sometimes I feel like she gets cheated in the equation. She was a single mom, raised me. She was in a really horrible marriage. The guy was such an a-hole and treated her like crap. And, here she is now, and she has a wonderful husband, Dave, treats her like a queen. And now that it's just me and I've been divorced, Mom is the one that watches Murray so I can go and raise money for all these animals. Because I won't let just anybody watch Murray. So I take him over by Grandma's, and I know he's going to be safe. She doesn't hear this very often, but she's a big part of what I get to do. So thank you, Mom, and I do love you, and I'm not going to cry.
I already made him do that at the beginning of the show. Oh, now you're making her cry.
Yeah, I got that from my mom. She cries at the drop of a hat, and so do I. So that's one of the things that she instilled in me, is to never be afraid of your emotions. Never be afraid to show emotion. I tell people I love them all the time. I cry at least once a day. I got my love of animals from my mom. So yeah, she's done a lot of things that she doesn't necessarily get a lot of credit for, because I end up talking about my dad a whole lot. But yeah, tonight she gets some of the credit.
Okay. We're almost to the end of the show. So I am I share and I advertise and I make sure that stuff gets out there. You have a show after you finish with me on Paramania Radio.
I do.
Paramania Radio is very near and dear to my heart, because when I first started on radio, Dave Erickson gave me my start. He allowed me to start Fireside Chat. So everybody here, when this show is done, go grab something quick to eat and then hop on over to Paramania Radio. And you get to hear Tim's show with Keith Johnson. The links are in the chat room for his Fox Cities Paranormal Radio Facebook page and the link for Paramania Radio. So copy that, paste it, go on over and listen to him continue to talk. When was the first radio show you did?
Wow, this is a long time ago. I think it was 2009 on Live Pair.
68 years old here, child. Please.
Yeah. Well, I think it was 2009, and I had no business doing radio. I had none. I had a year in paranormal investigation, and I was on radio telling people how to do investigations and what they're doing wrong. And looking back, it's hilarious. But I got my start on Live Paranormal in 2009. So I've been doing radio off and on for about 9 years. I take breaks every once in a while because sometimes you just get burnt out. But
Yep.
for me doing radio for me, it's more about learning. Because it's amazing, you know. I get to have these people on for an hour, pick their brain, and basically it's just I treat it like me just calling them up and we're having a chat, and I'm going to learn what I can from them, and I disguise it as a radio show. I've done shows on Live Paranormal, Blog Talk, Z Talk Radio, paramaniaradio.com, and Paramania Radio has treated me so well. I can't complain one bit, and they've given me the platform to come on and talk to people and learn from them. Quick story about Keith Johnson. Some of you may recognize him from Ghost Hunters. He was on in the early days. Him and his brother Carl, demonologists. Keith is actually a wonderful, wonderful human being and very open about helping and sharing. And I was on Andrea Perrin's radio show. I want to say 2 years ago. And Andrea and Keith have a connection because Keith worked on the Conjuring case way back in the day. And Keith Johnson of Ghost Hunters fame called into the show just to tell me how much he respected the way that I respected the field. And that was probably one of those moments in the field where I was like, wow, kind of feel like you made it because somebody that you look up to says they respect how you handle yourself. So Keith has become a good friend, and looking forward to having him on the show tonight. Fantastic guest. And so in all walks of life and all aspects of what I do in the paranormal, I try to stay humble and realize that all of this is bigger than I am. And I'm just lucky to be on the ride.
Well, I think you might be lucky to be on the ride, but I think that people that get to learn from you, and that's what I believe that radio shows are about, for me anyway. It's every show that you go to, you learn something, and if you don't learn something, then it's not something wrong with either one. It's just not at that moment in time, because there's always something, So so I will, everybody, feed your family and feed your faces ASAP, and then pop on over, because I'm going to do my darndest to come on over and support you guys over there. And
Awesome.
I haven't been in Paramania in a while. For some reason, I keep getting stuck listening to the Facebook Live. Paramania won't let me listen anymore. They don't like me. No, I like picking on Dave. But
Dave makes my job easy. I just show up and talk. He does everything else. And
I know. I always say that starting with Paramania Radio was, I was spoiled back then. All I had to do was show up, and Dave would call my guest in and play the music on break, and Dave was, I think for me that was my best way to start. Now there are times where I sit there and go, oh God, do I need a Dave? But you know what? We each have this. I have this show, and I have fun with it.
I don't have all this fun video, and I don't show the pictures, so I think you're ahead of the game here. I just show up and talk. My show is boring.
I think it's no matter where we are. The point is that so long as you get your message out there, so long as you share what you have, and the person, whether it's your guest or you, so long as you're sharing, then that's the most important thing. It doesn't really matter on what station and what channel and at what time. Because if somebody can't be there live, they can always listen to it in the archives. So I think this I think is right now for me. This is the place to be. I get to show a different side of people. Like you said, normally people just get to hear that sexy voice. Now they get to see the adorable face that goes along with it. And I get to make them blush.
I hate
I get to see that. Yeehaw.
I
Mama making them blush.
I hate my voice so much. I do. Like I do the review from the investigations, and I hate having the recorder where I was in the room because I don't like my voice that much. So when people say they like my voice, it just astonishes me.
Well,
people
I
need to raise
understand
their standards, I think.
No. I understand where you're coming from because people used to say to me, "You have such a great voice for radio." It's like, what? My face isn't good enough for TV, But I don't get it. When we listen to our own voice. I don't like to listen back to my shows, but I do because there's always something that I need to listen to again. But I don't like my voice. But people are like, "Oh, you should do meditation videos," and it's like, why? It's just me. I don't get it. I don't get it. But if other people, it's other people listening to our voice. I hear your voice differently than what you hear your voice. It's kind of sexy. Just put it out there.
I'm just gonna sit here and blush. That's all I'm gonna do.
There you go. Mom, I made him blush. But oh, look, even Tracy says you're a cutie pie. Tracy's a friend of mine here where I live, and Tim's shaking his head. For those people who don't realize it, because they're not watching the show, Tim's shaking his head and he's blushing, and I think I'm having fun with this one. I think it's probably about the most fun I've had. I get to make you blush. Normally, you got the guys in my chat room pick on me, so that's fine. I get to pick on my guests. But yeah, so I think we're going to bring it to an end so that people have a little bit of extra time, because I really do want people to go over and get, hang on a second, make sure I get this link in. All right, the first one, it's a good thing that we don't do the French version of the cuss jar. They don't really cuss that much. Okay, that is the link to Paramania Radio and to Tim's Paramania Fox Cities Paranormal Radio Facebook page. Go on there. Come on over. Listen to him. It's going to be another fun show. I just know it. And the next links that I'm putting into the chat room. A second.
I have to get into interviewer mode now. I have to not talk about myself anymore and get ready to just talk about Keith. Yeah, wait, and thankfully on my show you can't see me blush because I don't have video. So first thing I'm going to do is lose this sweatshirt because it's about 100 degrees in this office, and I'll probably do the show in just shorts. Yeah. I'll just do the show in shorts. So if anybody wants to come over, listen to the show, I see you looking.
I'm not looking at a thing. Okay, the next links that I put in are the Fox Cities Paranormal Team website, the Photograph for Pooch's website, and Tim's personal Facebook page. Gonna have everybody going over there and stalking you. Tracy says too much information.
Yeah, come on.
So yes, for those of you, go on over, listen to Tim's interview with Keith, and trust me, he doesn't trip over his tongue as much as I do. If you are in the neighborhood of, give me a second, I wrote it down somewhere.
Houghton Lake, Michigan. August the 4th, go and support the Silver Muzzle Cottage. I think that is an awesome thing. And every time that you have an event that's anywhere, please send me the link, send me the poster, and I will share it, because I think that what you do for the four-legged fur babies that are out there and don't have a home is an awesome thing. Thank you. I will do that. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come on the show. We laughed, we cried, we did all the things in between, and I had a really good time.
It was fun. Thank you,
We
everybody
did.
who showed up in the chat.
I blushed.
I didn't blush much. I did, but you don't see it because everything's always red on his face. But everybody who's in the chat room, thank you very much for being here. I'm going to give a shout out to backup. Who is me? Deb, Diane, Jackie, Mom, Joan, Kathleen, Larry, Marie, Tim, who had no choice to be here because he said yes, Tracy, and there were so many people that popped in and popped out. Thanks for being here. Hopefully I get to see you next week. As to who do I have next week, I have, oh God, Patrick Kavanagh. He's a writer, he's a poet, and a very interesting man. A lot of interesting people. Hello, it's my show. Everybody's interesting, whether you like it or not. So thank you, Tim. Have a great show tonight. I will see you in your chat room. Everybody, don't forget, go over to paramedianradio.com. Listen to Tim's show with Keith, and I will see you all next week. Much love, everybody. Good night.